In 1965, the soap opera Days of Our Lives premiered, creating a cultural phenomenon that would span generations, with its iconic opening narration, like sands through the hourglass. So are the days of our lives. The show did not merely succeed commercially, it became a daily ritual, a comfort and a second home for millions of viewers. Set in the fictional town of Salem, the series wove intricate tales of love, betrayal, family, and the supernatural, etching itself into the collective memory of the world. But behind those legendary characters, behind the doctors, the villains and the matriarchs were flesh and blood actors with destinies entirely their own. Decades have passed, and time in its ruthless march has carved very different marks upon their lives. Some found peace in privacy, some battled inner demons, and others saw their journeys halted by sudden tragedy. Today, let us turn back the pages of the tumultuous and poignant lives of the cast that created the soul of Days of Our Lives. Drake Hogestyn as John Black. In Days of Our Lives, the character of John Black is perhaps the most enigmatic figure to ever walk the streets of Salem. Originally introduced in 1986 as the Pawn. A man with no memory and a face wrapped in bandages, he was a blank slate that evolved into the show's ultimate romantic hero, Drake. Hogestyn, with his piercing gaze and iconic eyebrow raise, brought a rugged vulnerability to the role. For decades, whether he was a priest, a mercenary, or a spy, John Black was the protector, the man who loved Marlena Evans with a passion that defied death and dimension. His chemistry with Deidre Hall became the gold standard of daytime television, creating a super couple that defined the genre. Using our background knowledge, we see that Drake Hogestyn's real life was a story of athletic ambition transformed by destiny. Born in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Drake was not originally seeking the spotlight of Hollywood. He was chasing the lights of a stadium. A talented baseball player, he was drafted by the New York Yankees and played in their farm system. He possessed the discipline and the drive of a professional athlete, dreaming of the major leagues. However, fate threw a curveball in the form of a severe injury that shattered his baseball dreams. Yet, it was this very end that marked a new beginning. He took that same athletic discipline into acting, winning a talent search that launched him into stardom. Off-screen, Drake was the antithesis of the mysterious, often dangerous man he played. He was known as the most gracious man on set, a professional who treated the crew with the same respect as the producers. His personal life was a testament to stability and old-fashioned romance. He married his childhood sweetheart, Victoria Post, and they built a life far removed from the scandals of the entertainment industry. He was a devoted father to 4 children and a doting grandfather, finding his greatest joy not in awards, but in his family. He was a man of deep faith and quiet strength, battling health issues privately while maintaining a brave face for his fans and colleagues. The connection between the role and his life is a study in heroism. John Black was a hero who saved the world from fictional threats. Drake Hogestyn was a hero to his family, fighting real-world battles with dignity, while John Black searched for his identity. Drake Hogestyn knew exactly who he was, a husband, a father, and a teammate. However, the hourglass eventually runs out for us all. On September 28, 2024, just one day shy of his 71st birthday, Drake Hogestyn passed away after a courageous battle with pancreatic cancer. His death sent a shockwave through the world of television, silencing the voice of a legend. He left behind a legacy of kindness and a character that will forever remain the heart of Salem. Frances Reed as Alice Horton. In Days of Our Lives, Alice Horton was the bedrock, the soul, and the grandmother. Not just to her on-screen family, but to the entire audience. From the very first episode in 1965, Frances Reed portrayed Alice with a warmth that radiated through the screen. With her signature blue eyes and gentle demeanor, she was the moral compass of Salem. Whether she was baking her famous donuts or offering sagacious advice to wayward grandchildren, Alice represented unconditional love. Frances Reed's performance was a masterclass in subtlety, She could convey volumes of judgment or support with a mere glance over her spectacles. Frances Reed's journey to becoming the matriarch of daytime began long before she set foot in Salem. Born in Wichita Falls, Texas, she was a veteran of the stage, honing her craft in the theater before bringing her talents to the nascent medium of television. She was a woman of immense resilience and professional dedication. In her personal life, she experienced a profound and quiet sorrow alongside her professional triumphs. She was married to actor Philip Bourneuf for 39 years until his death in 1979. It was a partnership of equals filled with a shared love for the arts. However, life denied Frances the one role she played so perfectly on screen. She never had children of her own. This reality makes her portrayal of Alice Horton even more poignant. She poured all her maternal instincts, her nurturing spirit, and her wisdom into her fictional family and her younger co-stars. The cast became her children. The set became her home. She was known for her sharp wit and a feistiness that mirrored Alice's occasional, rebellious streak. She lived a life of grace, traveling the world and maintaining her independence, well into her advanced years, proving that one can be a mother figure to the world without giving birth. The connection between the role and her life is a beautiful compensation. Alice Horton was surrounded by a massive family. Frances Reed built that family through her art. She lived the life of a matriarch through the screen, giving the world the grandmother they all wished they had. But the gentle heart of Salem eventually came to rest. On February 3, 2011, Frances Reed passed away at the age of 95 in Los Angeles. Her death marked the end of an era, leaving the Horton house empty, but filled with the echoes of her kindness. She left a legacy of warmth that continues to comfort viewers to this day. MacDonald Carey, as Dr. Tom Horton. In Days of Our Lives, Dr. Tom Horton was the patriarch, the steady hand and the voice that welcomed viewers every single day. MacDonald Carey was the first face of the show, the dedicated physician who could heal a physical wound and a broken heart with equal skill. He played Tom Horton with a gravitas and a gentle authority that made him the father figure of the entire genre. For nearly 3 decades, his presence signified safety and wisdom in a town often overrun by chaos. MacDonald Carey's life off-screen was a tapestry of high intellect and deep struggle. Born in Iowa and educated with a master's degree, he was a true intellectual and a star of Hollywood's golden age, having worked with Hitchcock. But beneath the polished exterior of the successful actor lay a tumultuous battle. Carey struggled for years with alcoholism, a demon he fought with the same determination Tom Horton fought disease. He eventually found sobriety and became a beacon of hope for others, speaking openly about his recovery long before it was fashionable to do so. His personal life was marked by his love for poetry and literature. He was not just an actor. He was a published poet, using verse to process his emotions and his view of the world. He was a man of deep contradictions, a public figure who cherished introspection. His marriage to Elizabeth Heckscher produced 6 children, giving him the real-life experience of fatherhood that informed his on-screen persona. Yet his life also saw the pain of divorce. He channeled all of this, the joy, the addiction, the recovery, the poetry, into his work, remaining dedicated to the show even as his health began to fail. The connection between the role and his life is one of healing. Dr. Tom Horton healed patients. MacDonald Carey healed himself through art and sobriety. The voice that said, "Like sands through the hourglass," was the voice of a man who understood the preciousness of time better than anyone. The hourglass finally emptied for this legend on March 21, 1994. MacDonald Carey passed away from lung cancer at the age of 81. He continued to appear on the show almost until the very end. His dedication unwavering. His voice remains immortal, introducing the show to this day, a timeless reminder of his impact. Roscoe born as Trent Robbins. In Days of Our Lives, Roscoe Bourne played Trent Robbins, a darker, villainous character introduced in 2008. Trent was a manipulator, a man with a shadowy past who caused grief for the younger character's Roscoe. Bourne was a master of playing complex, often tormented villains. His striking looks and intense acting style made him the go-to actor for characters who walked the line between sanity and madness across many different soap operas. Roscoe. Bourne's real life was a poignant struggle between immense creativity and internal darkness. He was a talented musician and songwriter, a man with a sensitive soul who felt things deeply. However, his life was shadowed by a long and difficult battle with bipolar disorder. He was open about his struggles trying to use his platform to raise awareness about mental health. He experienced the highs of artistic creation and the crushing lows of depression. His personal life saw 3 marriages and the joy of fatherhood, particularly with his daughter, Alberta. He tried to balance the instability of his condition with the demands of a high-pressure career. He was a man fighting a war inside his own mind, even as he entertained millions. The connection between the role and his life is the complexity of the human mind. He often played characters with dual natures or hidden agendas in life. He wrestled with the duality of his own biochemistry. Tragically, the battle ended in heartbreak. On March 3, 2020, Roscoe. Bourne took his own life at the age of 69. His death was a stark reminder of the severity of mental illness. He left behind a legacy of brilliant performances and a call for greater compassion for those suffering in silence. John Howard as Stuart Weiland. In the early years of Days of Our Lives, John Howard played Stuart Weiland, a character woven into the fabric of the show's 1970s storylines. While not as flashy as the later villains, characters like Stuart provided the realistic human drama that grounded the show. John Howard brought a classic Hollywood elegance to the role, a sense of style and substance that elevated the scenes he was in. John Howard's life was a bridge to a bygone era. Born in 1913, he was a star of the silver screen long before television took over. He acted in classics, like The Philadelphia Story alongside Katharine Hepburn. He was a man of the golden age, handsome, dapper, and educated. After his film career slowed, he transitioned to television and education, eventually becoming a teacher. He was a man who valued knowledge and art, living a life of quiet dignity away from the desperate grasp of fading fame. His personal life was marked by a long marriage to Eva Ralph and the raising of their children. He found fulfillment in the classroom as much as on the soundstage. He was a gentleman in every sense of the word, representing a time when actors were seen as craftsmen. The connection between the role and his life is dignity. Stuart Weiland was a man of his time. John Howard was a man for all seasons who transitioned gracefully from movie star to soap actor to educator. The final bell rang for this gentleman on February 19, 1995. John Howard passed away from heart failure at the age of 81. He left behind a legacy that spanned the history of the 20th century entertainment, a quiet professional who did it all. Jed Allen as Don Craig. In Days of Our Lives. Don Craig was the dashing lawyer, the man who swept Marlena Evans off her feet long before John Black arrived. Jed Allen played Don with a smooth, charismatic charm that made him a fan favorite in the 70s and 80s. He is also famous for one of the most bizarre exits. In soap history, his character went out to mail a letter in 1985 and simply never returned, a fact that became a running joke in the industry. Jed Allen's career was that of the quintessential leading man, tall, handsome, and commanding. He went on to star in Santa Barbara and Beverly Hills, 90,210. He was a workhorse of the industry, capable of playing the romantic lead or the stern father with equal ease. But behind the handsome face was a man of deep loyalty. His personal life was centered entirely around his wife, Toby Brown. They were married for over 40 years until her death in 2001, a loss that devastated him. He was a family man through and through, raising 3 sons. He lived a life free of the scandals that plagued many of his contemporaries. In his later years, he embraced his status as a soap opera legend, attending conventions and engaging with fans who remembered the golden era. The connection between the role and his life is reliability. Don Craig may have disappeared, but Jed Allen never did. He was a constant presence on television screens for decades, a reliable talent who anchored every show he was on. The final letter was mailed on March 9th, 2019. Jed Allen passed away peacefully at the age of 84. He left behind the memory of a golden era of television and the legacy of a man who was as devoted to his real family as he was to his audience. Joseph Mascolo, as Stefano DiMera, in Days of Our Lives. Stefano DiMera was the Phoenix, the greatest villain in the history of daytime television. Joseph Mascolo created a character that was operatic in scale, cultured, ruthless, obsessed, and seemingly immortal. With his booming voice, thick accent, and imposing physical presence, Stefano terrorized the town of Salem for decades. Yet Mascolo infused the villain with a deep love for his family and a charming sophistication that made it impossible for the audience to truly hate him. He was the bad guy you loved to watch. Joseph Mascolo's real life was a fascinating contrast to the criminal mastermind he portrayed. Born in West Hartford, Connecticut, he was a classically trained musician. Before he was an actor, he was a clarinetist who played with the Metropolitan Opera. This musical background explains the rhythmic, conducting-like quality of his acting. He played Stefano, like he was conducting a symphony of chaos. He was a man of great culture and gentleness, a devout champion for the disabled and handicapped in his community. In his private life, Mascolo was far from the womanizing Stefano. He was a devoted husband. He married Rose Maimoni in 1953, and they were together until 1965, her death, after which he found love again with Patricia Schultz. He was a jovial, warm-hearted man who loved to laugh, a stark difference from the menacing cackle of the Phoenix. He battled health issues in his later years, including Alzheimer's disease, a cruel irony for an actor who had to memorize volumes of dialogue for decades. Yet he faced his decline with the same dignity he brought to his profession. The connection between the role and his life is the concept of passion. Stefano had a passion for power and control. Joseph Mascolo had a passion for music, art, and people. He used the largeness of his personality to create a monster on screen while using that same energy to do good in the real world. The Phoenix rose for the last time on December 8, 2016. Joseph Mascolo passed away at the age of 87 after a long battle with Alzheimer's disease. His death left a void in the villainous heart of Salem that has never been filled. He left a legacy of operatic grandeur and a reminder that the best villains are played by the kindest men. Peggy McKay as Caroline Brady, in Days of Our Lives. Caroline Brady was the quintessential mother figure, the strong-willed owner of the Brady pub, who served chowder and wisdom in equal measure. Peggy McKay played Caroline with a fiery spirit and a deep emotional well. She was the fiercely protective mother who stood by her children through scandals, kidnappings, and heartbreak. McKay brought a grounded realism to the role. She was the blue-collar queen of Salem, relatable and resilient. Peggy McKay's real life was a testament to independence and artistic integrity. Born in Manhattan, she was a true New Yorker with a no-nonsense attitude, unlike the matriarch she played, who was defined by her large family. Peggy McKay never married and had no children. She dedicated her entire life to her craft, winning a Primetime Emmy early in her career and earning several nominations for her work on Days. She viewed her freedom as a way to fully immerse herself in her roles. She was also a woman of deep compassion, specifically for animals. Peggy was a tireless advocate for animal rights, often preferring the company of her pets to the Hollywood social scene. She lived a life of quiet dignity, focused on her work and her causes. She faced the inevitable decline of age with a stubborn resilience, continuing to act as long as she physically could. The connection between the role and her life is the strength of a woman alone. Caroline Brady drew strength from her family. Peggy McKay drew strength from within. She proved that a woman does not need to be a biological mother to portray the depth of maternal love convincingly. The lights of the Brady pub dimmed on October 7th, 2018. Peggy McKay passed away from natural causes at the age of 90. She left behind a legacy of strong female characters and a reminder that dedication to one's passion is a life well lived. Francis DeSales as Father Francis. In the very beginning of Days of Our Lives, Francis DeSales played Father Francis, a character who offered spiritual guidance to the troubled residents of Salem. Though not a central protagonist, his role was crucial in establishing the moral and religious undertones of the show. DeSales brought a comforting, trustworthy presence to the screen, the kind of face that made you believe everything would be all right. Francis DeSales was the ultimate character actor. His career was built on reliability. He played police officers, judges, and authority figures in hundreds of films and TV shows. He was the face you recognized but couldn't always name. In real life, he was a steady, hard-working man who treated acting as a profession rather than a path to glory. He was the backbone of the industry, the type of actor who made the stars shine brighter. His personal life was quiet and private. He was married to Mary Helen McGowan for decades, living a life of stability that contrasted with the dramatic roles he supported. He was a man who showed up, did his work perfectly, and went home to his family. The connection between the role and his life is service. Father Francis served. His flock Francis DeSales served the story. He was a humble servant of the craft. The faithful servant rested on September 25, 1988. Francis DeSales passed away at the age of 76. His legacy is not in headlines, but in the hundreds of credits that prove he was an indispensable part of Hollywood history. John Aniston as Victor Kyriakis in Days of Our Lives. Victor Kyriakis was the ruthless Greek tycoon who could cut you down with a bullet or a dry, sarcastic one-liner. John Aniston played Victor with a twinkle in his eye, evolving the character from a straight mobster into the lovably cantankerous grandfather of the show. His delivery of dry wit became legendary, making Victor one of the most quotable characters on television. He represented power, wealth, and the complexity of a man who would do anything for family, even if his methods were questionable. John Aniston's life story is the classic American immigrant tale. Born Yannis Anastasakis in Crete, Greece, he brought his heritage to his role, infusing Victor with an authenticity that resonated. He was a man of immense intellect and a veteran of the U.S. Navy, while the world came to know him as the father of superstar Jennifer Aniston. John had already carved out a respectable and long-standing career of his own. He was a working actor's actor, a man who showed up, did his job with excellence, and went home to his family. His personal life was defined by his devotion to his family and his craft. He shared a close bond with his daughter Jennifer, and their mutual respect was often evident. He was also deeply devoted to his second wife, Sherry Rooney, and their son Alexander. John was a man of stability in an unstable industry. He worked well into his late 80s, refusing to retire, driven by a love for the routine and the camaraderie of the set. He was the elder statesman of the show, respected by all for his professionalism and his sharp mind. The connection between the role and his life is the patriarch Victor Kyriakis ruled his empire with an iron fist. John Aniston guided his family and his career with a steady hand and a sharp wit. Both were men of Greek heritage who made their mark in America, though John did it through art rather than organized crime. The final curtain fell on this distinguished gentleman on November 11, 2022. John Aniston passed away at the age of 89. He received a Lifetime Achievement Emmy shortly before his death, a fitting capstone to a magnificent career. Left behind a legacy of wit, class, and the enduring image of the most charming villain in daytime.